Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Glow Guide podcast. So, recently, I have been feeling a little bit exhausted and going through what I like to call one of my burnout phases, quote unquote. These phases are essentially when, for a few weeks or sometimes longer, I feel really, really tired and kind of drained all the time because doing so much is catching up with me, despite being the kind of person who thrives in a mostly semi panic attack level of chaos. But we can't be perfect all the time. That's the reality. Also, with my episode last week on end of the school year slack off, I realized I do a lot of content on being productive and grinding and locking in, but I have literally never done an episode before last week on slowing down and making sure that you don't burn out from doing so much. Which is also equally as, if not more important. So that's why I wanted to do this episode talking about toxic productivity and burnout today. But before moving on, podcast updates, life updates, our little segment, I guess. Podcast updates, not much. I think I'm 10 plays and downloads away from 3,000. So let's make that happen, guys. I think I checked. I was at 2,880 something, 90? I don't know. Something close to that, but we're really close. So let's make it happen. And also, gonna insert this in randomly. If you guys haven't noticed already, which you should be following me already on Instagram. But with my Instagram, I've kind of revived it over the course of the last month, end of March to beginning of April. I've tried to quote unquote revive it. But yeah, I've been posting a lot more. I posted at least twice a week for the last 4 weeks now, and I would say that's good progress for me. But I'm kind of running out of ideas for what to post. I'm pretty sure if you're following me on there, you guys have seen a lot of the same old episode clip and then carousel post with a bunch of tips. And I don't really know what you guys want to see, so send me a DM, send me an email, send me something, letting me know what kind of content you guys want to see, because that would be really, really helpful in me creating a better experience for you guys. Okay, so going into life updates, basically last week my school had our exchange week, I guess. We had a bunch of exchange students from France and Italy come to our school for a week. It was actually really fun. And then on Wednesday, we had a multicultural festival, basically, as it sounds, festival celebrating all kinds of different cultures. Me and my friend, we wore Indian dresses. It was really fun, great time. But yeah, and this is also my last week of track, which is really sad because it's my last week of sports, high school sports for my freshman year. And I was that went by so insanely fast. By the time I do sports again, I'm going to be fall of sophomore year, and I'm going to be able to technically drive by then. I'll have my permit. Speaking of which, I can get my permit in a month, which is pretty exciting. So yeah, that's that. Not a whole lot going on. A lot of school, end of year tests coming up. So yeah, all the more inspired, but all the more reason to have this episode. But before moving on, let's do one thing we're grateful for and one thing we're happy about, plus our book of the week. So one thing I am grateful for, going on track with our episode on toxic productivity and burnout today, is having the ability to slow down and take breaks, because I know that's something not a lot of people have, and it's something that I don't have a lot of, to be honest, but I am grateful that I still have the ability to take those breaks when needed, because I have friends who are going through it with junior year, and they're and I'm oh my gosh, and they're yeah, I'm kind of dying right now, so that's not fun, and I'm really glad that's not me at the moment. But yeah, I am one of those people who works very hard. I have big goals, and I can't really always find the time to slow down, take a break, even when I especially need to. I think I'm kind of conditioned for that as the oldest daughter to my oldest daughters out there. But yeah, I'm really grateful for that. And one thing I'm happy about, school's ending. School's ending. I'm always happy about that. It's gonna be summer soon, and I love summer. I'm a very summery person. And I'm really excited to go out on runs and, be sweating instead of freezing my ass off again. So that's my one thing I'm happy about. And then book of the week, again, as per the usual, since, the last year, I do not have one, but maybe we'll work on that over the summer. That's one of my, summer goals, I guess, to read more. I really have to do another book recommendations episode, but, I have no inspiration, so I should really get back on track with reading. Okay, so getting right into the content of this episode. Students, namely high school students like myself, and probably most of you all listening, because this is a podcast targeted towards high school students. Anyways, we work very hard. We do that. I always see these reels on Instagram about high school, but only junior year. That's like school, AP, DE classes, job, SAT, ACT tutoring, passion project, etc. And it's like, this is high school or this is junior year. And apparently, it's literally only the United States that requires teenagers to do all these things to have maybe a little teeny tiny percent chance of a shot at getting into a good college. And there are always comments from people who live in other countries that are like, really, you guys have to do all this just to get into, just for a big fat maybe at top colleges? At most schools today, and also when and where my parents went to college, because they went to college 20 years ago in India, being top of your class, good scores and tests were all you needed to get into the best staying college in the country, like the best of the best. It's insane. But yeah, high school students, especially the high achieving ones with big goals and bigger dreams like me, we do a ton of stuff. And sometimes that can really catch up to us and result in burnout. We live in a world where grinding 24/7 with no breaks is so ridiculously and concerningly normalized. And we tend to forget that it's okay to need a break from the hell of it all sometimes. And that's exactly what we are talking all about today. Although I'm assuming you know if you clicked on this episode, I still want to talk about like toxic productivity, burnout, hustle culture, and all that. So productivity is great. I have probably 5 episodes that are dedicated solely to time management and productivity because it is so incredibly important to students. But there is always too much of a good thing. So toxic productivity is pretty much exactly as it sounds. It's an obsession with productivity to the point where it actually becomes counterproductive and almost harmful. It no longer stays about wanting to work hard to achieve your goals or striving for success, which is healthy and very rewarding actually. But no, toxic productivity is about constantly pushing yourself to keep doing more and more, even when your body and mind are screaming at you to rest for once. Society is always telling us to do more and more without stopping, and that's exactly how burnout happens. We live in a world that equates being busy with being successful when both are actually very different things. The culture of overworking is overglorified and honestly pretty normalized these days. We always see people doing this and that and working late, sometimes for no pay. That's also normalized, which I think is bullshit. Social media doesn't really help this either. We are always being bombarded with images of people accomplishing really great things, from launching businesses, writing books, to traveling the world, which is great for them. Great for them. Honestly, those are really great goals, really great things they're achieving. I'm happy for them. But that also has a tendency to create the very false illusion that we aren't doing enough and we need to push ourselves more. And seeing all these people do these great things puts an invisible pressure on us that sometimes we don't even realize is there to do more and more. We can pretty easily fall into that sucky comparison trap, constantly feeling like we aren't good enough. We begin to measure our worth based on really ridiculously unrealistic standards, often disregarding our own unique paths, strengths, and accomplishments. Every single person out there has at least one unique thing, probably way more than one, that they can bring to the table. There are also a lot of personal factors that contribute to the unfortunate promotion of toxic productivity in our lives. Perfectionism, a fear of failure, or constantly feeling the need to be an overachiever are some of the leading causes. Many of us are driven by a fear of being mediocre or having a debilitating fear of failure. This fear can eventually devolve into an unhealthy obsession with perfection, where we are constantly pushing ourselves to too far, way too far, beyond our limits to produce flawless work. Overachievement is something I can really relate to, being the oldest daughter in my house. I am literally the stereotypical textbook definition of the oldest daughter. I'm pretty sure there are a lot of you out there that can relate to this, but it's like a never-ending race. We are always striving for more, striving for better, and we still never feel satisfied or accomplished enough, no matter how much we have achieved or how far ahead we are of everyone else. This unhealthy obsession can often lead to burnout, anxiety, or even physical health problems. Sometimes when it gets more extreme in that case. But it's crucial to understand that productivity is a beneficial thing, and productivity should serve us, not turn us into mindless slaves. It's about working smarter, not harder, and knowing when to rest and take a break. Remember that you're a human being, not a 24/7 productivity machine. Now, let's take a moment or two and talk about burnout. Burnout is essentially like hitting a wall, and not just any random wall, but a really tough one made out of brick, and you're running on literal fumes. Emotionally, mentally, physically, you're just completely drained and done. It's the aftermath of too much stress for too long, and it's like trying to run an entire marathon, which takes hours on end. and 26.2 miles at a sprinting pace, which you can barely maintain for 10 seconds. Not possible, no matter what you do, and you're going to run out of everything in you trying anyways. It's not going to end very well. It's never going to end very well, actually. There is a very obvious and significant link between toxic productivity and burnout. Imagine you're on a hamster, like you're a hamster on a hamster wheel, just running and running and running in that little circle, and then the wheel just keeps on spinning without stopping, and you just keep running and running. That's exactly what toxic productivity feels like. And the result is burnout. You're just so insanely done. If you're just working around the clock, one day you're going to wake up and you just can't do it anymore. You won't be able to focus. You're always going to feel frustrated, and you're going to feel like you're stuck in a rut. And that is what burnout is. Although burnout is more common for people like students or people who work really long hours who could be dealing with work-related burnout, it can sneak up on you no matter who you are or what you're doing. You could be dealing with work-related burnout, like I said, being swamped with deadlines or overly complicated office hierarchies. Or maybe you're experiencing caregiver burnout if you care for a loved one. That can become incredibly difficult and exhausting at times because often these caregivers are so dedicated to the needs of the other person they are caring for that they neglect their own well-being. They set aside so much of their time and energy towards others that they leave none for themselves, which also leads to exhaustion. And let's not forget about the main point of this episode, which is student burnout. This one is huge, and in a world where academic excellence and then some is heavily emphasized, students are often pushed to their limits. The pressure to excel in exams, do 1,400 extracurriculars, and maintain a good social life, or really any social life, can lead to a lot of stress. And once you've been under that stress for long enough, you are going to burn out. Burnout is a serious issue that can affect anyone, regardless of their situation. It is crucial to recognize the signs early and seek help if needed. Remember that it is perfectly okay to take a break and take a step off that hamster wheel. Because at the end of the day, you are so much more than how much nonsensical busy work you get done in a day. You are worth so much more than your productivity. Now, I wanted to discuss some of the occasionally very severe physical, mental, and emotional impacts that come along with toxic productivity and burnout. They can suck, which is why we should talk about it. When we're talking about the physical impact of burnout, it's not just about feeling tired. It's a completely different kind of tired that just really freaking sucks. Like a kind of tiredness where you can literally sleep for 10 hours and still wake up feeling like you just ran an entire marathon 10 times over. It's an unthinkable kind of tiredness. Your body feels unbelievably heavy. Your head is pounding. And you might even get more colds or flu than usual because your immune system is also tired of holding on for dear life. For me, when I'm unbelievably stressed out, it shows up in the form of a headache. I remember I really had a really, really bad headache for 2 weeks straight back when my FBLA hell was going on with my partner dropping out 10 days before regionals. I was so stressed the first night that I barely slept. I actually barely slept the whole 2 weeks, which brings me to the next thing. Burnout can also commonly show up in form of impacting your sleep. You would think that since you're so incredibly tired, you would sleep like a baby, right? Well, it's actually the opposite. The stress just keeps you up at night, and even if you do manage to get some sleep, you still feel just as tired, if not more tired than before. Then there are the emotional and mental impacts. Your emotions turn into a wild horse that you can't seem to control at all. 1 minute, you're screaming at your friends, and the next, you're about to cry because your notebooks fell on the ground. It's like you're stuck on an emotional roller coaster that just won't stop. And then mentally, don't even get me started on that. It's like walking to a room and completely blanking on why you even walked in there to begin with. This happens to me all the dang time because I am literally the most forgetful person ever. And it happens all the time, especially when you're burnt out. You can't focus. You can't remember literally anything for the life of you. And it feels like your brain is walking through quicksand and obviously drowning. And now this isn't me just blabbering about nonsense. Research backs it up, and a bunch of really serious health problems can happen down the line, especially heart disease and diabetes, those kinds of things, really severe things. Burnout can cause all of this, not to mention the huge toll it has on your mental health, which can ultimately lead to things like depression and anxiety. That's a lot, right? But there is this one thing. Recognizing and understanding burnout is the very first baby step to many of actually dealing with it. You're never alone in this. There are ways to refill your tank. It's really about finding balance, setting good boundaries, and making sure you take care of yourself. So that was kind of our background section for this episode. Now I wanted to talk about the main reason you guys probably clicked on this episode. And that is how to deal with toxic productivity and burnout, sorry. The first and most important thing is recognizing and understanding your personal limits. We live in a world that overglorifies working yourself into the ground. Hustle culture, grinding all the time, ignoring your internal cues, screaming at you to stop, it's all ingrained into all of us by now. And it's funny how we always seem to forget that we're humans and not robotic machines running on motor oil all the time. We push ourselves too far beyond our limits, which work way too many extra hours, skip meals, don't sleep, get sleep deprived, and before we know it, we're running on absolutely nothing but fumes, and we're surprised by it. Isn't that insane? No wonder you're tired. But it's time to change that mindset. It's essential to acknowledge that we all have our breaking point. We are not invincible, and it's perfectly okay to say, I can't do this right now. It's not a sign of weakness. If anything, it actually takes a lot of strength to recognize your limitations and be honest about them. Most of us seem to think that our limits are just little wee hurdles or roadblocks that we just need to push right past. And spoiler alert, they're actually not. They are big, flashing red signs that your body and mind are waving desperately to get your attention. Ignoring these limits doesn't make you a hero, but acknowledging it does. It really does take a lot of strength and courage to understand when you have to tell yourself to stop. Also, you really need to stop comparing your limits to other limits. Yes, your friend might seem like they're doing even more work. Someone else might be appearing to juggle 14 million things with no problem. But remember, we are all different. I am one of those people who thrives in pure chaos in a schedule that I know most people, it gives them a heart attack, like a mini heart attack. And I know a lot of people who can't handle a schedule like mine for even a day. And that's good for them, for understanding that we all have our different strengths and different capacities. So instead of comparing, try to set personal benchmarks. Your competition is never with other people, but rather with yourself. So strive to be the best version of yourself, not someone else. That is exactly what I encourage on this podcast. One of my core values and beliefs. You always want to be the best version of yourself. Because at the end of the day, no one is going to ask you why you didn't do as much as this person or that person. What really matters is, did you do the best you could in terms of your own personal limitations? So keep that in mind. Set your own personal goals and celebrate your own achievements, no matter how small. And most importantly, cut yourself some slack. You're doing the very best you can, or at least you should be. And if that's what you're doing, then you're doing more than enough. Moving on to our next tip, let's talk about the idealized work-life balance. And as I'm saying this, you might be thinking, well, I'm in high school, not a 9-to-5 job. So what does this have to do with me? And trust me when I say it has everything and then some to do with you. In the hectic tornado of classes, extracurriculars, homework, test prep, maybe a part-time job, it's really, really easy to forget that there's a life beyond all the chaos. But remember that school is only one part of your life, not your entire life. Your identity shouldn't revolve around it. So how do you achieve that balance? Well, I will start by saying it is not easy. It is about boundaries. Yes, of course, you have tests to study for and assignments to finish, but it is also essential to make some time for yourself. This personal time could be anything from a hobby you enjoy to hanging out with your friends, or maybe just taking some time to read your favorite book for a bit. And speaking of boundaries, actually, let's talk about homework. It can be very tempting and honestly sometimes very necessary to stay up all night to finish that project. But you need to remember that your health comes first. This is something I really struggled with when I first started high school, but slowly I adapted, and now all my work is done by 9:30 p.m. every night instead of 11:30. So set specific hours for homework and stick to them, and then once you're done, you can take some time to rest and recharge. Same goes for studying. Taking regular breaks is absolutely crucial. Breaks can actually help you absorb and retain information even better than if you were just to keep pushing through it. And it also keeps your stress levels in check. So whether it's a 5-minute stretch or a half-hour walk, make sure to give your brain some well-deserved rest. Also, don't forget about weekends and holidays. They're your chance to step away from school and work and recharge. What I do with my weekends is normally, if nothing big is going on, Saturdays I'll sleep in really late and kind of just do nothing. Maybe in the evening I will do a bit of homework. Most of the time I don't. But then on Sundays, I make sure to take time for rest, obviously, in the first half of the day, but also the second half of the day, maybe after 3 p.m. That's normally when I start to lock in and I'll start preparing for the upcoming week. I do homework, podcast work, anything that needs to be done. Or, yeah, that's pretty much what I do. So make sure to take breaks when you can, hanging out with your friends, work on a hobby, or just do nothing because it's your time to relax and rest. In the end, remember that a good work-life balance isn't about splitting your time equally between everything, but about finding a good balance and a functioning rhythm that works for you. So take that break, set some boundaries, and remember that your teenage years are shorter than you think. So enjoy the few years you have left. It's really just not worth being stressed out all the damn time. So third tip, and don't hate me when I say this, is practicing and developing good time management skills. This is a huge one, and you're probably like, oh, not that again. I do always talk about time management, but that's because it is so incredibly important. I can't stress it enough. Oh my God. Honestly, if you're wondering how everyone else is doing so much all the time, it's probably because they have really, really good time management. We all get the same 24 hours. It really just comes down to how you use those 24 hours compared to the next person. I am only able to do so much all the time because I have good time management. I saw this reel and it was like this girl responding. She's like, how do you do so much? And she was like, Google Calendar for scheduling, Notion for to-do list, Google Sheets for trackers. And I was like, that's literally me, but a bit different in systems used. So have those systems. Being busy does not mean being productive. We often find ourselves, and I know this is true for me, but we are always juggling a million things at once, thinking we are being super productive when we actually are not. We're just busy. Real productivity comes from doing less, but doing so very well. There are many different strategies you can try. A really common one is the Pomodoro technique. It's a very simple yet very effective method where you work for 25 minutes and then take a 5-minute break, and then that fourth break, like after the fourth cycle of work, that break is 15 minutes. The idea is maintaining focus without burnout. The next one, and a personal favorite of mine, is time blocking. This involves dividing your day into blocks of time, with each block dedicated to a certain task or activity. For example, there could be a block for homework, a block for studying, a block for relaxation. It is a really great technique, and I use this all the time, literally every day, and it works great. A lot better than just doing things as they come up. Proactivity over reactivity 24/7. Prioritization is also really important. Make sure you get the really important things done first and then do the other random things later. If you have an essay due tomorrow, you better be working on that before studying for your test next week. This way, the most important things get done first. Also, don't forget to leave some wiggle room in your schedule. Unexpected things happen all the time, whether that's a spontaneous outing with your friends, a last-minute assignment, or maybe you just desperately need an afternoon of doing nothing. It's okay. Having a flexible schedule will ensure that you can handle these surprises without more stress. If you want more, I actually have 3 whole episodes dedicated solely to time management and productivity, so go listen to those. But anyways, time management is not a one-size-fits-all thing. What worked for me might not work for you, and that is okay. The key is to experiment with different strategies and see what suits you best. Now let's talk about our next tip, which is something that is often overlooked but absolutely crucial, and that is self-care. A common misconception about self-care is that it's all about taking bubble baths and face masks, and that's totally valid, but self-care is really about taking care of your well-being, physically, mentally, and emotionally. Starting with physical self-care, it involves taking care of your body. That means regular exercise. Regular exercise doesn't mean waking up at 5 every morning to go to the gym or running marathons every weekend. It could be as simple as dancing to your favorite song in your room, a quick game of basketball with your friends, or taking a walk in the park nearby. The goal is to just get moving and get those endorphins up. Next is nutrition. Eating a balanced diet is essential to your overall health and brain function. Don't skip meals, especially breakfast. Breakfast is what your body needs to start the day off right. Sweets and others, like those not-so-healthy things, are perfectly okay in moderation as long as you don't eat them all the time. Make sure you eat your fruits, veggies, and also stay hydrated. Sleep is another major one. I am very guilty of staying up late to do work a lot, way more than I really should. Staying up late, doing really whatever can be really tempting, but your body literally needs sleep to function. Even just 24 hours of no sleep is the same as having a blood alcohol percentage of 0.10, which is well above the driving limit of 0.08. So try to set a regular sleep schedule and create an environment conducive to sleep. Your body and your grades will thank you. In terms of mental health, it's more important than ever. Take care of your mental well-being. This can mean vastly different things for different people. For some, it might be meditating or practicing mindfulness. For others, it could be reading a book or listening to their favorite music. Hobbies are another great way to take care of your mental health. Whether you're into painting, playing an instrument, or gardening, hobbies are like an escape from the stress of everyday life. They give your brain a much-needed break and can help you relax and unwind. For emotional self-care, it's all about acknowledging and expressing your feelings instead of shoving them back down. It's okay to have bad days and feel negative emotions. I'm not saying you should suppress all of that because that is, well, the opposite of what I'm saying. What's important is to not bottle them up. Talk to a friend or family member, or just write in a journal if that's more your thing. Speaking of which, actually, keeping a journal can be a really great way to express your feelings. It provides a safe space for you to pour out your thoughts and emotions without fear of judgment. Plus, it can be a great way to reflect on your experiences and gain a lot of self-awareness. And it just feels good to write it all out sometimes. Just find what works best for you and make sure to make it a part of your routine. Self-care isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. And remember, taking care of yourself is never selfish, it's love. So my final tip here is something that might sound a bit harsh, but can be incredibly powerful when it comes to preserving our well-being, and that is saying no to what doesn't actually matter to you. In school, there are a whirlwind of activities, opportunities, and demands consuming us all the time. We're constantly being pulled in so many different directions, and it can really feel like we need to do it all. But the reality is that not everything that demands our attention deserves our attention. And I know that I say that you should always say yes to every opportunity that comes your way, and I still stand by that 100%. If you think it could be fun or it's something you care about, absolutely say yes. But if you feel pressured to do it for whatever reason, then don't do it. In order to avoid burnout, it's essential to learn to distinguish between the things that do matter versus the things that don't. This isn't about being dismissive or unkind, it's about recognizing your worth and the value of your time. After all, especially now, time is your most valuable and also your most limited resource. So use it wisely and on the things that matter most. A good way to think about it is that every time you say yes to something that doesn't actually matter, you're essentially saying no to something that does. That could be a hobby you love, time spent with friends, or time for ourselves to relax and recharge. Learning to say no can be really challenging, especially when you're worried about upsetting others or not doing enough. But it's a skill worth developing. When we say no to what doesn't matter, we are making a conscious choice to prioritize our well-being and our goals. We're creating space for what truly enriches us. Always remember that it's your own life and you have the right to decide how you choose to spend your own time and energy. So saying no to what doesn't matter frees you to say yes to what does, leading to an overall more fulfilling and balanced life. So that was all I had to say for this episode. I hope it helps, and I hope you implement at least one, even just one of these tips to avoid toxic productivity and burnout. Because if I've convinced you to implement even one of these tips to learn at least one thing, then I've done my job. I have 100% done my job. To end off our episode today, I have a quote for you guys from Anne Lamott. Let's really hope and pray I'm saying that right. Anyways, the quote goes, "Most everything will work again if you unplug it for a few minutes, including you." Bye, guys. Rate, review, follow, and share this podcast. Please, please, please go follow me on Instagram @TheGlow Podcast. Drink some water, and I love you all.